The news from Japan lately has not been good. The economy shrank in the second quarter, and it may have shrunk in the third quarter as well, which would qualify as a recession. Japan might be sliding closer to deflation. The inflation rate right now is very close to zero. You might take from this that Abenomics, the program of radical economic stimulus that's been introduced by Prime Minister Shinzo Abe, is a failure. But that would be a mistake. It hasn't been a failure. In fact, Abenomics has been much more successful than you might realize. To understand why, you have to probe beneath the headlines. Let's deal with inflation, for example. 2 years ago, the Bank of Japan introduced what they called quantitative and qualitative easing to try and get inflation, which was then negative, up to 2%. Well, right now it's only 0.2%, but that's mostly because of falling oil prices. If you take out the effects of fresh food and oil and a consumption tax that was introduced a year ago, inflation is actually now 1.1%. No, it's not achieved the Bank of Japan's goal, but it's doing a lot better than it has for many years at a time. Even wages seem to be growing now. Unions are looking forward to 0.7% base pay increases this year. Not spectacular, but the best since the 1990s. And what about that Japanese growth number? It is true that Japanese growth has not been spectacular this year, but remember, its long-term growth rate is only around 0.5% because of poor demographics and productivity. So negatives are actually quite common and don't necessarily mean the economy is sliding into a recession. So why hasn't Abenomics been more successful? Partly it's bad luck. China's slowdown has hit Japan hard, and falling oil prices have pushed down inflation, which makes it hard to persuade the public that higher inflation is here to stay. And there have been self-inflicted wounds, like last year's tax hike, which really set back the economy. The biggest problem is that even though prices are rising, wages have been very slow to follow because Japanese workers simply don't have very much bargaining power. Firms are increasingly turning to part-time and contract employees. So getting more sustained success over deflation and stagnation is going to require having more of the benefits of Abenomics flowing down to workers. It might require lower unemployment and more confidence by firms that Japan is not going to fall into another recession soon.